Our church started in 1856, really, among French Canadians in the States. Even for Bishop Villat, he used the words Orthodox Old Catholic, both words together, or at some point, Orthodox Catholic Church. He used, that name. Although our original name is Christian Catholic Church. But Alvares was the main consecrator.
Yeah,
and he was consecrated according to the Western Rite, the Latin Rite. It was not the Orthodox liturgy. We've never used, an Orthodox liturgy or Orthodox vestment. We've always been Western. That's our tradition.
We have heard a brief history. I mean, I was really enthusiastic to hear from you the whole history from the ancient time to the present. But even if we really talk about history, even if we talk about the succession from Metropolitan Alvares or from Metropolitan Trinidad to Timotheus, we have heard people really having some confusions over when we start to use the term Western Rite. So, how can we make them to understand this particular term, Western Rite, and how easily can we define the term Western Rite? And nowadays, when people really relates to Western Rite, or when people really tries to read about Western Rite, they will really think, we have seen a trend that they really thinks that it's just the Catholic faith, but it's much more than that. So as a teacher, as a historian, how will you define the term Western Rite, and what's its scope, the real scope of the term, the idea, and if you can talk a little bit about its origin to the idea of Western Rite, that will be really helpful for our viewers.
The Western Rite, it was first defined in our statement of faith that we call the Duval Declaration, that we still go by today. We still adhere to that. But the main source to understand the Western Rite, the way Bishop Villat understood it and passed it on to us, is reading his definitions of it. Because, he wrote pastoral letters, statement, circulars, and everything. I published his writings, his main writings about the Western Rite, the general councils of the church, and the epiclesis in the Eucharist, and no filioque in the creed, and all these things we have maintained from the time of Bishop Villat. But it was easy in a way, because the old Catholic Mass is consistent with the Western Rite. They stand on the same belief. Today, the old Catholics are losing many of their characteristics because of the Anglican influence. But when I was studying in Bern, the professor who directed the dissertation was very close to the Orthodox, and after I left, he joined the Orthodox Church. They had that belief that old Catholicism was the same as the Orthodox Church. Even for Bishop Villat, he used the words Orthodox Old Catholic, both words together, or at some point, Orthodox Catholic Church. He used, that name. Although our original name is Christian Catholic Church, At some point, we were called Old Catholic Church, Orthodox Catholic Church, but under Bishop Gauthier, my predecessor, we went back to the original name and we've maintained that name with no confusion. But if people could read, the writings of Bishop Villa, that's what I suggest really. You will understand how we understand the Western Rite in our tradition.
We have heard people around the world really being little bit I will may use the term chaotic when they start to think about all Catholic or with Western Rite. Even inside the Orthodox communion, we have seen that few of the Byzantine churches and few of the Oriental churches are little bit more into Western rights, supporting Western right communities, like particularly like that of Syrian Church, Malangara Church, even Coptic Church was having a Western right, like the British Orthodox Church and the France Orthodox Church. These all were parts, and like we can see that these are the remains of Western rights. But now, in the present era, we are going through an era where we are finding it's really hard for Western Rite Orthodox, Western Rite churches, and for the old Catholic churches to preserve or to convey their faith and to I was just going through websites and YouTubes, and I was not able to find much information about Western Rite or about the Catholic Church, I mean the old Catholic Church. What do you think that that's really scarce, or do you really think that people is still believing some type of are having some type of chaos in thinking about the old Catholic Church and the Western Rite?
I think the key issue is training of the people in the parishes, training of the clergy in seminaries, and Bishop Villat was very keen on that. And it's a chance that we had because after Villat, Durand was he was good to train the clergy. He wrote many texts to Bishop Durand, Bishop Villat's successor. I published his writings, and he wrote a very interesting text, The Old Catholic Church, understood as a Western Rite church. And it's very well developed, very well documented in history and in the Bible. So if, you need to train your clergy. I was trained by Bishop Coating, and trained in the parishes, like in our tradition, we will make our people remember who were the pioneers of our faith, who were our leaders, like on November the 2nd, at the beginning of the Mass, we will recall the life of Saint Gregory of Parumala to the people. So they know them. They know Saint Alvares. They know Saint Gregory. They know these things because we pass this on to them. One of the main difficulty, as far as I'm concerned, is for old Catholics to receive Roman Catholic clergy. And they give them leadership role without, having them really trained in the Western Rite theology. So they come and they do what they did before. They teach the Roman Catholic theology. It's too bad even today in the Utrecht Union of Churches, many of the bishops, they come directly from the Roman Catholic Church. So you don't realize, but progressively you move away without realizing it, you move away from the tradition. So passing the tradition in the parishes and in the seminary, to me, is basic. I would never give leadership in the church, to Roman Catholic priests who have not been trained by us. And Bishop Villette was the same. He received Roman Catholic clergy at some point, but he always trained them. Before putting them in parishes, we've maintained that. And we trained them 3 years in the parishes, learning how to proclaim the word of God, to teach the word of God in our understanding, and we're there to coach them and to debrief everything and complete what is missing. And this is the way to go, really, to keep a tradition. And also good archives. We're fortunate because the archives of our church are maintained by the state. So we have very professional archivists, who take good care of our archives. When Alexander and Philip wrote their books, they got help from the Quebec National Archives. And I think it was very helpful because we have the documents, the newspapers, the bulletins, everything is there, and the writings of our leaders going back to the mid-19th century. So what you do with the Most Alvares project, to me, is fantastic because that's what you're doing. You put everything together, you find all the documents. Sometimes they're in a very bad condition, but you will try to put them together and print them in books. It's a blessing what you're doing. It's a blessing and it has to continue.
Yeah, of course, as you mentioned, good archives, good books, and like and preservation of all these information. We really believe that like the stories or the historical references of Alvarius Julius, Saintly Alvarius Julius, has also reached Canada, and your church and your ancestors was also speaking about all these things. And as we are commemorating Metropolitan Alvares Julius, Saintly Metropolitan Alvares Julius, I really like to get some type of reflections from your side about what's something that we really uh, 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 have to transform ourselves through the teachings. What do you really believe that we have to do for preserving the faith, the history, the rich traditions, the rich seal of that particular giant who was really interested to bring Western rites around the world together? Like, how can we really justify to his life in this 2023, or in this present era? What do you really feel about the same?
I think we have to present to the people the heroic character of Saint Alvarez. Because, it's because of the heroism of these people that we exist today. Because, there are so many occasions, obstacles to stop, to abandon the work. But Alvarez and Bishop Villa, persecution didn't stop them. They kept going, they maintained the flame inside of them, flame for the gospel, flame for the salvation, redemption through Jesus Christ, and also uh, a fidelity to the tradition therein, and a constant desire to maintain it without deviation, without omission, without addition. That's what they did. Because I will tell you something. When Bishop Villat went to ordain Ignatius priest, you know the story of Father Ignatius of Lantany?
Yeah, I have read from the same book, from the same work
Oh,
of
yeah.
Mark.
Yeah, it's well documented there. But what I will tell you is not there because, nobody knows really about it. Uh, so when the Mass started in the monastery, they were worshipping the Blessed Sacrament, with candles all over the place and kneeling and, and they were preparing to say Mass. Bishop Villat was so offended, he took the candle and threw them on the stairs leading to the altar. That's what I mean by heroic for the faith, heroic for the tradition. He told them, it's completely senseless what you're doing. You don't say Mass in front of the Blessed Sacrament exposed in the monstrance. It's, what kind of theology is that? So sometimes he was using very strong gesture, but on the other hand, it made people think, it must be awful if he had that reaction, you see. So they asked question and he took the opportunity to give them teaching. The Mass is the Blessed Sacrament in the community. You don't need the Blessed Sacrament exposed in the monstrance because the Blessed Sacrament is on the altar, and you have communion from it. These are things we need to do. Our pastor needs to be heroic and not accept everything in the name of Western Rite. Understand what it is, be trained, and trained in the community, not through, succession of bishops. That's another problem. They think that if I put my hands on your head, you're Western Rite. That's not the way it goes. There's no bishop without the community, and there's no community without the bishop. Both have to go hand in hand. I've seen so many of these things in my life. Having been ordained priest in 1976, I had time to to check a couple of things. But they have that understanding. They don't need training. They met someone, he put his hand on me. I'm bishop, I'm archbishop. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. And unfortunately, they use Bishop Villat and St. Alvares for that. They claim to be the successors. It doesn't make sense. So this we have to fight, not by attacking them, but by, publishing, teaching, and, you want to know what Bishop Villat thought of it? Look at that. Read this, read that. Because there's a continuity. Bishop Durand was trained by Bishop Villat. He trained his sons, his twin sons, and I had the chance to know them. I spoke with them. The Durand. One of them bears Bishop Villat's name, René Durand. He was baptized and by Bishop Villat, and he was his godfather. So you see the transmission, from Bishop Villat to Bishop Durand, from Bishop Durand to his sons, and from his sons to us today, and there's a continuity. We don't come from nowhere. We come from somewhere. It has to be, it has to have a face of sorting to go to the people through the expression of the faith. So we need courage, persistence, heroism, because persecution is there. Here we it's not that bad today, but it's a very Roman Catholic country here, particularly in Quebec. 95% maybe of the population is Roman Catholic. So, it can be difficult at times. Fortunately, we made good contact with some of them, but it has never been easy. Bishop Durand, the second one, all his ministry was underground. One day he was even attacked in a big newspaper in Montreal called Le Devoir. Two articles against him, against the Patriarch of Antioch, against, the Malankara Church. And he was a medical doctor. He was so afraid to lose his patients. You see what I mean? It has consequences because the main newspaper is attacking you in two articles. You have to hide yourself. So you went underground, but it was very detrimental for the church because nobody heard about us. We were celebrating in hidden chapels, and like the old Catholics in the Netherlands. In the first years, they had hidden churches. So for many years, we were in that position. And it's only end of the 50s, beginning of the 60s, that we had that bishop, an Hungarian old Catholic bishop, who came to Montreal. And it was a blessing for us because, he brought a revival of sort. And then after him, we reconnected with the descendants of the Christian Catholics in the States, particularly. And we put everything back together, and here we are. We've survived.
Yeah, we have really heard and we have really read a lot about the persecutions, particularly then it was from the Catholic side, the persecutions that were really making it really trouble for Metropolitan Alvarios and Metropolitan Renewal Timotheos, even in their last time, even in their beds, they were really creating issues for both of these real heroes of Western Rite, and all these really even gave a challenge, gave a bigger challenge to his for their followers. Even the same was happening here in Brahmawara, and when we were going deep for our research, we were really able to understand that many of these communities that were once connected with Metropolitan Alvares Julius was later cut off from the church, and then they either rejoined Catholic Church or they rejoined Anglican groups and other things later. So all these challenges are there in the pathway of all these Western. Whenever we read something about Western Rite heroes, we really read about these persecutions too. As we are coming to the last part of this interview, I really like to, as they were having these challenges as persecution, I really like to know what are the challenges in the new era that is faced by the church. And I also like to know how the church is growing there in Canada, and also how the churches in communion, like I have read that Christian Catholic Church is having communions with many other old Catholic churches around around the world. So how that's progressing, and I also like to know like I have really read and I was really amused to see that your church is the full authority, or the authority that really maintains the Metropolitan Renewal Timotheos tomb there in France. So I like to know the present conditions of all these things, including the church, the challenges that you face there in Canada and around the world, and also about the conditions in France, about the tomb and your related communities in France and around.
I'll start with our situation in the ecumenical world, and then I'll go to this difficulty. We're part of the World Council of Churches through the International Council of Community Churches. So we interact with other churches. We participate in get-togethers. Also, we're a member of the interfaith committee of the Uruguay. The Uruguay is the French part here of the capital area. We're in the capital area here. Ottawa is the English side of the river, and then you have Gatineau on the other side. But we have people from both sides, so we're involved in the Interfaith Committee of the Uruguay. Each year we have a Religion Day where we celebrate together with other Christians and also with Muslim, Jews, and because Bishop Villat participated in the Parliament of Religion in Chicago in, at the turn of the century, he was involved there. So we've maintained that. Now the difficulties. We're at the most difficult time in the church because people are losing faith. People are losing faith here. So we have less and less people in the church. Less and less people. So it's a big concern because even to succeed us, actually, we have no one in training. So it's a big concern. Will the church disappear after us? Because we're all old. The clergy, the average age is 70. So there's no succession, really. And less people in the churches. Fortunately, we offer the Mass on YouTube. And, we have a following of between 70 and 120 on Sunday who take the Mass on YouTube. But, it's even a concern because it's difficult to manage a continuity this way. Because when we disappear, everything disappears. So that's my concern. We pray for that at every Mass. That the Lord send us young people that we can train and who can assure the continuity of the ministry. You see, we've passed from servicing about 5,000 people when I joined the church. Now it's 3,000. We diminish year by year. So people don't go to church anymore, and the faith is really disappearing. It's a big concern. We've tried everything to bring people to church, but we still have to find ways that work. It's not like in India.
But on the other side, here also we are facing some similar issues.
Yeah.
So I will not say that maybe this particular this particular condition that you mentioned, it will maybe here within 20 or 30 or 40 years, maybe it will be affecting here in Malangara in India too, maybe.
Okay. Because I looked at some parades that you have when you celebrate Saint Gregory of Parumala or Saint Alvaro, and there are lots of people in the streets, and it looks to me you're numerous. It's
Yeah,
not the
of course,
case.
the pilgrim centers and celebration feast celebrations will be really grand, and there you could see people from different parts of the whole India. So there you can see a bigger representation of the faithfuls, but I really mean the density is really decreasing.
Okay. So that's the concern because everything else seems to be under control, but the diminution of the attendance at Mass is a big, big concern. So pray for us that the Lord sends missionaries, to maintain the church that we've rebuilt. We don't
Yeah,
want it to
as
disappear.
yeah, it's of course it's a great concern all over the world. Even if we go to Eastern Europe, or even in Romania, we recently was hearing that their Romanian church is taking up the old age, serving old age and serving these care houses, or putting up the care houses, because the young generation is just immigrating to new areas or
Okay.
developed world, so that they can really find more opportunities and to find more
Mm-hmm.
openings. And as they are moving out from their mother countries, or from from Romania, I will just give the example from Romania. As they're moving out from Romania to UK or US or wherever it is, they are not really interested to go back to the church, or to be allied with the church, whichever is there in UK or US or wherever it is. And it's really hard for I really believe that this is the same condition in all the churches. Like presently, maybe that these will be little bit more okay in few of countries, like that in Ethiopia, or in Egypt, or any of those, even in Russia, any of those highly Christian populated countries. But on the other side, it's really hard for any of other churches, like that of Malangara, where we are really not a majority, we are just minorities, or minority over here. So all these issues are going on throughout the world, and it's really hard to find a good solution for all these things. And we it's it will be really, it's more hard for us to understand, like when the youths who really have to be the cornerstones of this church, and to be the pillars of this church in the coming era, when they wither away from the church, and when they started to join some other new era thoughts, liberal thoughts, and liberal ideas that really gives more importance to secularism, and even for agnoists, like even these ideas are creating more agnoists and more atheists. And it's really hard for us to understand all these things. And as we are coming to the conclusion of this particular in a special interview, we are really grateful for having you here. And I'm concerned about your health condition too, as I was in constant contact with you. And for this particular Western Rite, and with both parts, first part and the second part, I mean, even the whole project of Mar Alvarez Julius research project, we are really thankful for the whole support from your side, and the openness that you really showed to us during our research and during our publication. And it's really as the secretary of Orthodoxy Cognate, still we are known, and we are really discussed around the society for this particular work. And it's really eye-opening for many of the people over here. And that's why I came up with the question. Like when we go on to the people, and when we start to talk about Western Rite churches, Western Rite independent movements, it's really hard for few to understand it. They really concerned, they will really take up the concern of their faith, and they start to compare it with the other. And on the other side, the faith and the church as the whole find similarities. And we have to be really, as you have mentioned in during our interview, we really have to remember those heroes, and how they really gave their life for the preservation of the faith, for the preservation of the church, and for all these things. And before concluding, I will really request Bishop Serge to have, if you really have some conclusion points. So we really like to know about those points, and we really still like to keep our connections, collaborations between Christian Catholic Church of Canada and with the Orthodoxy Communities. So if you have some conclusion remarks, we will go with that, and then we will end this particular special interview with Bishop.
My last remark is maybe the big benefit of our collaboration is the rehabilitation of Bishop Villa because, unfortunately, you've been left with a caricature of him. He was a great pastor, a great theologian, great preacher. And frankly, I think that the real memory of him is with us in the Christian Catholic Church. And it was uh, we were very appreciative of the opportunity to present the real Bishop Villa, who was very close to Alvarez. You know, what you know of Alvarez, we know of Villa because they had the same approach, same works, same concerns, So the big advantage of our work together is the rehabilitation in India of Bishop Villa, who was and continued to be a great bishop.
We really like to make some updates about it. So, when we started to talk about Renewal Demositios, or I mean, in our society, people was really little bit skeptical about his last years. Like, as the people were less informed about the life of Renewal Timotheus, it was really, they were really having some other stories in their mind. And when we were able to bring the books about him, when we really covered about Rene Villate Timotheus in our first part of the Western Rite book, it was really new information for many of our faithfuls, many
Saint
of those
Gregory
followers
always
around the world.
believed in him. This is the good point. Saint
Yep,
Gregory always believed in him. He knew who he was, and
yep.
he maintained his support. He said, "What Bishop Villa? He has difficulty because he's persecuted. That's the only thing. Beside that, he is a great man." And he was right.
Yeah, of course. So when we were doing our research too, we really felt a big gap. After the death of saintly Gregorius of Parimela, we it was really a period where like we couldn't find any other personality who was really connected with Metropolitan Relimilati like that of Saint Gregorius of Parimela after that particular era. So that's a bigger gap in the history, and I really believe that that particular gap has just increased the disparities or the fissure between the communities, and that's why this all the misconceptions and other things was over here. And like we really believe that all this when people start to read more about these heroes, they will really start to uh, to throw away all these type of misconceptions and all these issues that's there in there. I mean, maybe they have heard it from miscellaneous sources, but these were not the real stories that were happening there in Canada or in France. And once again, we are really thankful for having you over here and to feature you, on our YouTube channel. And we really believe that this will be a good opening for people to learn more about Christian Catholic Church and Western Rite. And in future too, we really like to come up with similar topics and similar or discussions with you, Bishop Serge. And we really, as we pray for you, we also request you to include our work and our humble work in the field of pan orthodoxy in your prayers too.
Absolutely.
And thank
Let's
you
pray
once
for each
again.
other because we
And
need
thank you.
prayer.
Yep, yep. So thank you once again, and thank you for finding time to spend with Orthodoxy Cognate page. And we thank all our viewers for tuning us to this special interview. And see you all soon with another interview or with another explanation video. See you all soon. Thank you.